Hey everybody, hope you're all doing good today. Just taking a little break, enjoying the sunshine out here. Been working all morning on our new Fish the Moment lake breakdowns, where we've basically switching them over to using GPS locations on there. It's making a real slick presentation. So been working on those pretty hard since we've been back from the Lake Louisville tournament. And just wanted to do today's YouTube video on a question I've been getting a bunch pertinent to jerkbait season, which we're going to be doing a lot of stuff on jerkbaits over the next month. And probably one of the biggest questions I get on jerkbait fishing is, what hooks do I like to use on a Megabass jerkbait? I get a ton of questions on this. And so I sort of wanted to discuss that a little bit, just sort of give you my thoughts on that today, because there's several different considerations to take in that. First of all, one of the things you have to understand about Megabass jerkbaits compared to other jerkbaits is they're really sensitive as far as the tolerances on everything are set perfect from the factory. So the stock hooks that come on the Megabass jerkbaits are designed for that bait to make the bait suspend or just barely slowly rise. And if you've ever used the Outbarb Megabass hooks on there, you know they're they're a light wire. They're stiff hook, but they're light wire and they're super lightweight. Doesn't add a lot of extra weight to the bait. And they're really good hooks that come with it. These hooks that come with the stock Megabass jerkbaits hook the fish really good. They do a really good job. The only downside about them sometimes is, since they are a light fine wire hook, is they will straighten out a little bit easier than a normal treble hook. Excuse me. Which is okay, because you got to have a light wire hook on that particular bait. But here's the way I do it is, when I'm fun fishing or practicing, and even sometimes in a tournament, if I'm fishing specifically for spotted bass, I use the stock Megabass Outbarb hooks that come on the bait. They're a really good hook. I've had just as good a success on as everything, particularly when you're fishing for spotted bass that have the small mouths and the soft mouths. They work really good. With the stock Megabass hooks that come on the bait, a lot of times you have to weight the bait a little bit to get it to suspend, because depending upon the paint scheme on the bait, some of the baits will suspend or rise differently, and the water temperature has some impact on that too. So that's one thing to remember, is like, not all baits are going to rise or fall with the same hook on it, based upon the color, the paint amount that's on the bait, and the water temperature. Because, for example, if you're using like a flat finish, there's more weight and paint on that bait than like a translucent finish, sided one. But for the most part, what I do in the tournament is, I've experimented with tons and tons of hooks out there, and ever since they came out with them, by far the best treble hook for Megabass jerkbaits is the Gamakatsu G-Finesse treble hook. This is a super stiff, light wire, light hook, super strong. And these hooks, I've never seen a hook that is that the diameter of the hook is so small that you can't straighten it out. It's a super stiff hook, and it's really light. It's got the slick finish on it. It's got the O'Shaughnessy bend, and it really hooks the bass good. And particularly, big fish, you won't straighten them out ever. And the barbs on them are small enough to get good penetration. And that's one of the big keys you have to remember when you're fishing jerkbaits. You do not want any type of a treble hook that has even a medium or large barb on it. You want a light, small barb, and that's what the G-Finesse has on it, as well as the stock Megabass hooks on there. Because most of the time, like I said, you're dealing with fish that are nipping a bait, you're dealing with fishing it on lighter line, and you just don't really have the power to penetrate a larger barbed hook in that bait, particularly in the winter months like that. So size-wise on the thing is a big consideration too. One of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of anglers make in the jerkbait fishing is they tend to put too big of hooks on their jerkbaits. And what this does is a couple different things. Larger hooks will actually cause you to lose more fish simply because it's harder to penetrate those treble hooks into the fish's mouth unless you're fishing the bait on heavy line and a bait caster, like in real shallow water. Super power fish in dirty water, that would be one exception. And on top of that, the larger hook that you go to, it not only adds more weight to the bait, which can sink the bait, but it also it just kills the action of the lure. You put more weight on the bait, and that bait is not designed to carry that much weight on it, and it affects the action of the lure. So the ones that I've set on, for example, on a traditional Megabass 110 profile jerkbait, the best setup that I found on it is I put 3 number 5 G Finesse Gamakatsu trebles on it. And these are, a number 5 G Finesse treble is a little bit smaller than like a lot of other, what would you consider a number 5 size in a lot of different hooks. So when you look at this particular bait, you might look at that the way with the 3 number 3s on there, and you might say, well, man, those hooks look a little bit small for that bait. But they're not, because I very seldom lose fish on it. You know, like I said, once a fish touches one of those barbs, it's in them and it's not going to straighten out. And it doesn't kill the action of my bait. It keeps my bait lively. And it doesn't mess with the suspension or rising, falling rate of the bait so much. It's pretty similar. They're a little bit heavier than the Megabass stock hooks, but not much at all on there. Sometimes if I'm, like I said, the only time that I will upgrade, say for example, if I'm fishing for strictly largemouth, like over shallow grass, in that type of situation, and I'm upgrading my line size to like 10 to 12 pound test line because I'm not concerned about attaining the depth out of the bait, sometimes I'll go up to like a number 4 on the front and the back and a number 3 in the middle. And you know, you're going to lose a little bit of action, but not a whole lot in that situation. It'll cause the bait to sink a little bit, but a lot of times if you're fishing it fast, that's not really that big of an issue on it. But like I said, that's, you know, I've tried a bunch of them. You know, I use all Gamakatsu hooks. I've tried about every single hook that they make, and that's the one that I've settled on. And I tell all my friends that, they ask me all the time, you know, man, what hooks do you run on a 110? And that's the ones I've settled on. I just think that G Finesse Gamakatsu trebles, it's the best hook for that bait. I think you'll be really happy with that. But if that is something, if you don't want to mess with like upgrading the hooks and everything, you know, you can get by with the stock hooks that are on the bait. You know, they'll do a fine job on there. One thing that I would recommend though is, once you do straighten part of a barb out, just completely get rid of that hook, because you've weakened the integrity of that hook once it straightens out, and it's never going to be quite the same on that. So anyway, hooks are a big part of a jerkbait. Like I said, it's one of the most overlooked aspects as far as for the performance of the bait, and allowing you to, you know, to get, you know, to land and hook and land all those bass that bite your jerkbait. Because, you know, a jerkbait is a fish that, you know, it can be a low percentage lure as far as the bite to land ratio, depending upon the bass, how the bass is biting it. And most of the time when a bass bites a jerkbait, it doesn't get the whole bait. I mean, the fish have got to be super aggressive to get all 3 hooks a lot of times. A lot of times you're dealing with a bass that is just nipping at the end of it. So since you're dealing with a bass that's nipping at the tail of the bait, it's really critical that you have the right hook on that end of that bait, as far as that'll hook that fish when it bites it, get the bite to begin with. One other little tip I'll add to that real quick, sort of goes along the same way, is a lot of times I'll put 2 split rings on the back. It sets that bait back just about another 1/8 of an inch. And a lot of times that makes it doesn't sound like much, but a lot of times that makes all the difference in the world. But anyway, to answer your question, Megabass Vision 110, go with 3 number 3 Gamakatsu G Finesse trebles. Give it a try. I really think you'll be happy with the performance of that bait, the way it handles and fishes with that. So anyway, hope everybody's doing good today. Thanks again for subscribing, checking out the channel. Really appreciate it. I'll be putting up a lot more jerkbait, videos moving forward here. Again, one more time, check out fishthemoment.com if you're interested in any of our lake map breakdowns. Johnny and I are working really hard on that, getting ready to put out a bunch of new content, a bunch of new videos on our offshore challenges, offshore shallow challenges. He's getting ready to put up all my practice sessions for the last 3 or 4 Bassmaster Opens. So we've got a lot of good content coming up on fishthemoment.com. Check it out. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a good day. Check in later. See you.